Hi everyone, today we are going to be starting stage 2 of our coding. So we've gotten our servo motors to work properly and we're ready to go there. Now we need to turn our focus to thruster motors. Now the thruster motors are organized in a I think everybody's done it this way, whether you have two thruster motors that are kind of side by side and then one thruster motor, that last thruster motor off by itself somewhere. If you have, here's how we're going to handle it. This one that's off by itself is going to be just controlling pushing us forward, pushing us backwards, and up and down. It won't be involved in the turning of the robot, so it's going to be a little easier to code. We'll start with that one today. The ones that are side by side of each other, either at the front of the robot or at the back of the robot or in the middle or wherever you put them, those are going to be the ones that control that sort of side to side motion, and they'll be used for forward, back, and up and down. So they're a multi-purpose thruster. So we'll hold off on these programming until later. It's a little more complicated. Okay, just a reminder, the joystick that we're going to be using is the left joystick forward. It's going to make us go forward. Down is going to make us go backwards. Left and right is going to make us pivot left and right and turn. And then the right joystick up is going to be go up in the water, and down is going to be go further down, deeper into the water. All right, let's get to it. So to do this single thruster, for me, it's my front thruster. So I might say front thruster sometimes. If it's not front thruster for you, that's okay. I'll try and use single thruster as much as I can. All we need to do on this one is we need to read the y-axis of the left joystick. So how far up and down we're going. We need to map that analog value that's 0 to 1023 to the motor speed value, which is 1100 to 1900. Remember, when we're working with brushless motors, 1100 is full speed backwards, 1900 is full speed forward, and 1500 is off. Good numbers to memorize. All right, so after mapping it, we're going to get some number, and then we need to come down here and we need to say, hey, wait a second. Our joysticks aren't perfect. When we let them go, they don't go exactly back to middle. So that means that if they're a little bit off from the middle, they're going to be constantly sending the motor a command to spin really slowly. And we don't want to do that. So what we'll do is we'll create an if statement in our code that says, hey, if the thruster speed is really close to 1500, that means the joystick's been released. We're going to just make it 1500 exactly. That way we're not sending a confusing command to the thruster to say, hey, spin really slowly here. And then once we do that, we bring it back to 1500. We'll then send that 1500 command to the ESC so it can control the thruster. All right, so now if we do it again, and then after that, the whole process repeats. So this is that repeating of the whole loop. So when we repeat again, if we've moved the joystick and we're not close to 1500, then this will be false and the code will flow through this route and send that number directly to the motor without doing this chunk of code. All right, now that we have an overall understanding of where we're going, sorry for clapping, let's go ahead and get to the coding part of it. I've opened up that same file that we used for the servos. We're going to build all of our code into this one file. And I'm just going to open up a few lines of space down here at the bottom, making sure that my ending curly brace is the bottom still. Tab over, / for a comment, and I'm just going to put a whole line of asterisks. This will make it really visually obvious that something different is happening down below. And then another enter // and then the following code controls the not servo, the thruster motors. Awesome. Keeping your code well organized will make so many things so much easier later when something goes wrong and you need to figure out how to fix it. Being able to find it quickly is so much nicer. All right. Next thing we're going to do is let's go back to our flowchart, make sure we start in the right place. We need to read the y-axis and store the value in something called ljoy. Wait, yeah, that's right, left. So L for left joystick in the Y direction. Okay, so I know that my joystick isn't all on or all off. It's partial values in there. So I want to do an analog and not a digital read. So analog read. And I'm going to read the pin the joystick is plugged into, but I want to put that pin number down at the bottom in here, somewhere buried in the code, because to find it and change it would be a nuisance. So I'm going to create a variable real quick. I'm going to say ljoy pin. I'm going to put a semicolon in. Now, I just used this variable. I actually haven't created it yet, so I'm going to double click on the name I gave it, Control C, go up to the top where I made all my pins, and here's an RJoy pin. Yep, here we go. And I like to put my left before right, so I'm going to put this one just above it, INT, Control V is equal to A1. And here's a word of caution. Yours may not be plugged into A1. Don't just use the code I'm creating. Make sure you're checking to make sure it's plugged in the same way as mine. If it's not, use the port, the pin it's plugged into, or rewire your board. Either way is fine. All right, so that's done. If we ran this code, the Arduino would happily do this. It would go read the pin, but because we didn't tell it where to put that information, it's going to just forget it instantaneously. So when we do something, we always need to put it somewhere. So in this case, we're going to store it in the LJoy variable. So remember, the equals doesn't mean equals. It means take whatever's in the right, do what's in the right, and then store it in the variable on the left. So in this case, it's going to read the LJoy pin, get a number somewhere between 0 and 1023, like 765. And it's going to put that 765 into the LJoy variable so that we can use it later on for doing more stuff with. All right, now I've used this variable, but I haven't actually created it yet, so I'm going to Control C. And I'm going to come up here, and actually let's hold off. Let's do a quick upload and see what error this throws. So this will throw a particular error that tells you that you haven't created your variable yet. There it is. So it says LJoy was not declared in the scope, meaning you never made the variable to start with, you just used it. So good to know. So I'm going to double click on that, Control C. I'm going to head up here to the top and find my, I'm not going to put it with my pin variable because I want to stay organized. Here's my RJoy variable. So again, I want to go left before right. It's just how I do things. Control V equals. And when I think about this, the joystick starting value should probably not be all the way down at 0. It should be in the middle there. So I'm actually going to give it a 512 starting value. It makes more sense, I think. So I'm going to change the RJoy as well. Now you could easily make the argument that it doesn't matter what starting value you give these variables, because the first things we do is we go ahead and rewrite them to the variable, the value that they're currently set at. And you'd be right to say that these aren't important starting numbers. Okay, so now we need to see if that worked. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to copy and paste my own code. I'm going to come steal my code for RJoy, Control C. I'm going to get the serial print line from there. And I'm going to put it down here. Click on the 78. I'm going to do Control/ to uncomment it. And I noticed that this one says RJoy, so I'm just going to switch that to LJoy. And this one also says RJoy. I'm going to switch it to LJoy. I'm going to upload this, hopefully not get any errors. And open my serial monitor. I just want to see if it's working. Now my serial monitor right now is currently a mess. So you'll have to forgive the fact that it's kind of hard to read, but we can still mostly read what's going on with it. I'm not sure what's going on with it, what's causing the problem. All right, here we go. All right, so right now it's around 510, and really the middle value should be like 512 if it was a perfect joystick. So let's go ahead and I'll move my LJoy value. Yep, it's increasing when I move it up, and then when I move it down, it's decreasing down to 0. Okay, so it looks like it's working perfectly. I think at this point, so I'm going to come back in here. I'm going to click back to Sketchbook so I'm not watching those scroll by all the time. Click on line 78 here to highlight the entire line, and then Control/ to recomment it. I don't need to serial print this right now because I know it's working. Awesome. So that's our first bubble done on the flowchart. In the next video, we'll pick up with the mapping and move down through the if statements. Good job. Hang in there.